Welcome to the Ground and Pone Podcast, a weekly show for fans of combat sports, gaming, entertainment, and plenty more. I'm Brian Shea, online content director at Game Informer, joined as always by Scott Fontana, the New York Post's MMA reporter. I think it's safe to say that it certainly wasn't the fight week either of us expected, but I can speak for myself when I say that it is absolutely the fight card I wanted. We're going to chat all about UFC 279 as well as the recent onslaught of gaming news. But first, unfortunately, we both woke up to some unfortunate news from the fight world this morning, Scott.
Yeah, just overnight while I was still working, we all learned that Elias Theodorou, UFC veteran, had passed away. The word is cancer. That he is, he was only 34 years old. No one really publicly knew about this. This wasn't something that was made to be, a thing that anybody really knew about. You couldn't find anything about it. Everybody obviously chooses to go through different health situations and whatever in their own way. But this was some distressing news. I mean, obviously a man is gone, but not just any man. Elias Theodorou has really shaken. The loss of Elias Theodorou has really shaken the MMA community, fighters, media, so many people, his lives that he touched. I don't think people really understood the impact that he had until he was gone.
Yeah, he seems like he was just a really good dude. He seems really well liked within the community. And it's terrible. And he fought as recently as December of last year.
And not only did he fight in December last year, his final opponent, Brian Baker, is a Bellator veteran. I don't know if you remember Brian Baker.
Mm-mm.
Brian Baker was a Bellator veteran kind of in the earlier seasons. And one of the big things about Brian that everybody kind of knew was he was a cancer survivor.
Oh, wow. God.
So it just, not that there's nothing funny about it. It's kind of just a coincidence, one would think. But, man, just a real shame. Like, a life gone too soon, 34, younger than both you and I.
Yeah, so the news was kind of hitting Twitter last night as I was going to bed, but it wasn't confirmed. It was just somebody like on Twitter like saying like, hey, like, I live in the area and everybody's kind of really upset about this. Or some guy was like, yeah, I used to train with him or whatever. And
I was scrambling to find out what happened because I think it was Ben the Bane Davis actually tweeted something about it.
Yeah.
But, like, no one was tweeting anything that actually cited anything. It was just kind of a lot of people saying like, oh, sad he's gone and that kind of thing. I was like, well, what's going on here? Like, no one had reported it yet. I don't have contacts with Elias. I didn't have a way to just reach out, and I'm not gonna just introduce myself to new people and try to scramble. That feels yucky to me. So, I reached out to one person I know who I'm pretty sure knew him, but I didn't know if he knew him well enough to even know that. I was really just kind of curious, like, is this true?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to perpetuate it if it was, right. You don't want to just be like, oh man, that's awful. You got to, in this day and age, you kind of have to be like, well, where'd this come from, right? Especially in media, you got to be more responsible. So I'm looking around, I'm trying to get it. And it was Cole Shelton of BJPenn.com was able to, he reported that, confirmed with teammates that unfortunately he had passed. So that was a real shame. It is a shame. It still is a shame. The man's gone. He touched a lot of lives. I think a lot of fight fans, like, maybe they don't really know much about Elias Theodorou. And to be honest, I never got to meet him. I really regret that now, knowing what everybody kind of said about him. Seems like he would have been really fantastic to work with and speak to.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a couple things about Elias, though, before. Number one, that he's a little bit of a trailblazer in being, I believe he's the first fighter to have received a therapeutic use exemption for cannabis.
I believe he was the first. Yeah.
Yeah. It was that's really groundbreaking stuff. And I wonder if, now we're hearing therapeutic use. Was it because he was dealing with cancer? I don't know.
I think it was in 2020. So yeah, that sounds about the right time frame.
Who knows? I don't want to speculate here or anything like that. It's not necessary, and it's not our business to do that. But if that being the case, you almost wonder, hey, this is something that's really. It really shows how important it is for people to be able to get the medicine they think they need, or that the doctors and people think they need, right? And be able to compete in this sport. Because Brian Baker, like I said, he was competing while battling cancer too. So we do not know that that's what Elias Theodorou was doing, but whether he was or not, if that is a medicine that someone thinks is going to help somebody, let's say with cancer or something else, good on the commission for recognizing that and being a little more progressive in getting that done, right?
And also, on a lighter note, I will always remember him as the Invicta ring boy.
As the ring boy, yes, I was going to bring that up. I'm glad you did. Yes, a much lighter note, of course, and that's a trailblazer in and of itself, right? Like, we have the ring girls around the octagon. I don't know where you sit on this, but like when I got into the sport, you know, at the latter half of the aughts, right? I was a younger man, and I was like, oh yeah, these girls are cute, you know, and they are inarguably pretty cute, right?
I don't think that's changed.
No. We get older, and well, they don't stay the same age because Ariane Celeste has been doing it for forever, and she's getting older with us, but you know, she still obviously looks fantastic. But I don't at this point, I basically don't pay attention to them anymore. They're just there, and I move on with my day. But it's like, what one, I almost ask like, what's the point of them? But number two, you know, I get it. Like, I get it that they're kind of, it's kind of like a staple of the sport, right? But there are no ring boys, right? There's no ring men or what have you, except for when Elias Theodorou became that for Invicta. So
for Invicta, which is so perfect because it's an all women's fight organization.
Of course, exactly. Not that we couldn't have that in theory in the UFC over Dana White's dead body, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And not to, you know, make this about, we're talking about a very unfortunate news here, but I feel like someone would appreciate this conversation. It might even be Elias, right? just based on the fact that he actually did go and be the ring boy.
And by the way,
what's that?
By the way, his run in the UFC was much better than I think people give him credit for.
Oh, significantly, yeah.
I
always thought it was a bad job for the UFC to let him go.
His only losses were to Thiago Santos, Brad Tavares, and Derek Brunson, and he was cut off the Derek Brunson loss, which broke a 3-fight winning streak. So it's not like he was like on some huge spiral and the UFC is like, beat it. Like, I think they needed to clear some space so they could keep Sam Alvey on.
Who, by the way, he beat Sam Alvey.
Of course he did, because everybody in those 3 divisions did.
Yeah. That never sat right with me, because on merit he should have been there. But I think the thing with Elias Theodorou is, and I'm not trying to drag somebody's name through the ground or anything like that, but represent the man for what he was. He went to a lot of decisions in the UFC, and a lot of people just did not love his style. A lot of his fights didn't necessarily go down as the most interesting. He did not collect any post-fight bonuses or anything like that. So that's not the type of thing the UFC is looking for. I think that's a UFC problem, because I think they should be running a sport, and from a sporting perspective, Elias Theodorou should have been there.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm very disappointed that he was let go from them to begin with.
I mean, we're in a sport,
but more obviously we've lost a man now, and that is a much deeper loss.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say that we're in a sport that the number one pipeline to the elite organization is now a thing where the promoter sits on the side and says, "Oh, I like the way that guy knocked that other guy out. I didn't like the way that guy shot for a takedown with 10 seconds left. He should go to PFL." Brendan Loughnane.
And this is a man who won the Ultimate Fighter, right? He won the Ultimate Fighter Nations, the middleweight tournament, to get into the UFC in 2014. So, and actually he won that as a finish. Obviously, that's, different levels of competition. I think Sheldon Westcott had a couple fights in the UFC though. Back when they used to give people from the Ultimate Fighter more than just like one person would move on, right? Like, you would keep a couple of them. Now it's just like, well, if you win, sure, but if you don't, probably we'll let you go. I thought he got a raw deal there, but the fighters, the media members, the ones who did get to speak to him, the ones who've worked with him before, everyone just said how how willing he was to just give you his time, all that. Michael Chiesa posted a short video talking about Elias. I guess there was some place he was at and he was going to have to speak, and he didn't have. I'm talking about Michael here. He didn't have a jacket or whatever, to look nice or whatever. And he started off by saying, "Oh, he'd give you the shirt off your back," and then he tells this story about how Elias Theodorou literally gives him the jacket that he was wearing, and he still had it. He was holding the jacket. He never got to give it back to Elias.
Oh, Yeah, that's rough. That's a really rough story to hear.
It's almost like it's representative of just the idea that, man, we think we have more time than
For
we
sure.
do. You know, we don't always appreciate people when we have them. We don't always appreciate the time that we have while we're here. And, you know, it's important to live. And it does seem like Elias Theodorou definitely lived while he was here. And that's a really wonderful thing. That's kind of if you could take anything out of the loss of a man, it's to remember how they lived. And it seems like he lived a life that I think anyone could probably be pretty proud of.
And because he left an impact on seemingly so many people, you know, they say that like, what's the phrase? It's like you don't really die until the last person who
you die twice.
Or the last person whose lives you impacted forget about you or something like that. Yeah, it sounds like that's going to take a long time.
You die twice. Once when you go, and then once when the last person ever says your name. And you know, hopefully Elias Theodorou's name will last for years to come with the people who knew him best and loved him.
It's absolutely just tragic news coming out of the fight world, but there's no good way to segue out of that.
There just isn't. No,
but we're already on the fight side of the fence, so I think let's talk about the action from this past weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think we have to go crazy with the elements of kind of what happened over the course of the last week since we were here, but obviously different fights occurred than what we spoke about last week, and it changed the entire complexion of UFC 279. You know, we just really quick. We were preparing last week if you missed our show, we were preparing to watch Nate Diaz, what we assumed would probably not be a very, let's say, competitive matchup against Khamzat Chimaev. Underneath it was, you know, Kevin Holland was going against Daniel Rodriguez, and Tony Ferguson stepping up at 170 pounds for the first time and basically since he won the Ultimate Fighter himself, going against Li Jingliang. So these were the fights we had. I think we liked pretty much everything underneath the main event, but we didn't really love everything else, and that made it much harder for us to say, hey, should we take our time to watch this, right? We, you know, based on that, we weren't necessarily recommending it as like put your $75 down, right? Everything changed, of course, on Friday when Khamzat just like no F's on this one. He didn't care at all, it would seem. Supposedly there's a medical issue, but whatever. That's his business. He couldn't get below 178.5. So much closer to middleweight than, well, not much closer, but just about the middle.
Much closer to that 180 catch weight that Kevin Holland and Daniel Rodriguez.
Much closer to the 180 catch weight of Rodriguez and Holland, correct. So that threw everything, you know, off. It was whether or not it was Nate wouldn't take the fight, whether it was the commission wouldn't allow it. I don't know. I mean, they let somebody fight with a 10-pound difference ultimately, so I don't really know where the commission really sat on that or not. But where it stood is they needed to scramble for hours to try and make this happen, make everybody happy. And sure enough, we ended up with fights that I think everybody all week was saying, well, why didn't we do this anyway? And somehow we got them. We got Nate Diaz going against Tony Ferguson, which made a lot more sense, even at 170 pounds. It's really just a no-cut lightweight fight is what it came down to. We had it 2 fights at 180 pounds because of the catch weights, right? Khamzat Chimaev was then going to take on Holland at 180. And technically Holland outweighed him. Yeah, sure. Doubt that. And then the other fight, it was Daniel Rodriguez, who was 180 going against a legit 170 in Li Jingliang.
Yeah, that was the only one I wasn't super thrilled about. Like, I was better with Tony Ferguson and Nate Diaz. I mean, that as soon as I heard that was the main event, I was like, all right, well, they're getting my money now, because I was probably about 60-40 leaning in the direction of not buying the pay-per-view when it was.
You were that close. I didn't think you were that close.
When it was Diaz Chimaev, I was like, I don't know. You
almost did it though. I thought you were farther away.
I mean, I probably would have given in just because, like, it's a Saturday night. It's like, oh man, everybody's tweeting about this, and like we said, the rest of the card.
And you weren't at a Renaissance Festival this time.
I was not. No, this weekend was much more low key.
Okay.
But yeah, I did go to a football party yesterday.
Oh, well, I mean, but that's the day later.
But yeah, that's the day later. However, yeah, like once they rearranged this, I was like, oh, I'm at like 95% going to buy this now, because that was just such a better slate of matchups. Maybe not necessarily a better card because it's still the same pieces, but it's just an overall way better, especially the main event, way better matchups.
Oh, significantly better. I mean, and I wrote about this in my column a little bit, but like realistically, when you ended up watching that Chimaev Holland fight, which was about as one-sided as you could get, there was actually, I think there was only one strike landed from Chimaev officially. And that Holland actually didn't register statistics that the UFC keeps.
Nope.
So other than time in the octagon, he didn't throw a punch. He didn't do anything. He just kind of just got taken down very quickly off of, I guess it was either a fake jab or a fake glove touch. It was hard to really tell. We don't really know. But
I saw Angela Hill tweeting about it's like Chimaev won by missed weight and fake glove touch.
Yeah, and a healthy dose of really awesome wrestling / grappling.
Yeah.
But that's I don't want to sit here and defend Khamzat Chimaev or his behavior this week or his behavior getting to weight or being professional about anything else or whatever. But legit, the guy's skilled. You can't deny it.
Look, there's a lot of stuff to really not like about Khamzat Chimaev, whether it's his just absolutely unprofessional demeanor this entire week. His links to Kadyrov in Chechnya. There's all kinds of things that you can poke holes in. I think he took the gimmick or the heel gimmick that he kind of played into this week a little far, and I hope he doesn't keep going with that.
I don't see why he wouldn't, because I think he learned that works.
I just think he might. He stands at a risk. He stands right on the edge of maybe taking it too far if he keeps this going, I think.
I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but also it's when has taking it too far with this type of gimmick been a bad thing?
Well, I think we saw the contrast to that with Diaz after he won, where he came out and he was like, the whole week he was like, F the UFC, F all this stuff. And then
he's like that with everything.
At the end, though, he was like, you know what? It's been a love-hate relationship with the UFC, and I want to go do other sports and then come back and win a UFC title. And it's like, I've had a great time here. And it's like, oh, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect professionalism out of Nate Diaz at the end of the day.
I would say, yeah. I don't want to say I expected it or anything like that. It was definitely an unexpected move, but it makes a lot of sense because Nate, I don't know what people think of Nate out there, but Nate seems to be really savvy when it comes to the business of the fight game.
100%.
And I think he knows what he's doing when he says that. Is he's trying to leave the door very open for someone he's no longer working with. There's a clear sever there in terms of work relationship. Now he's going to do something else. He's definitive about that. But does he want to burn a bridge there? Definitely not. It seems like the best way to do that is not necessarily trash the organization on the way out. He did it before because he was mad he didn't get a fight. But then everything kind of worked out in his favor anyway. He actually got a better fight. I think he was more happy to get the OG right in Tony Ferguson. So I think it was a smart business move, and he knows how to do that. And
before we go back to Khamzat here, in the post fight thing, speaking of how savvy Nate Diaz is. Do you notice that when he was saying hey, Conor McGregor went over and tried to do other sports and I'm going to show him how it's done, mentioning Conor McGregor is a very, very savvy move because they stand to make a lot more money for the third fight if it's a boxing match outside of the UFC. And I don't know how many fights McGregor has left on his contract, but
probably too many to make that work.
I don't know. He signed an 8-fight deal, I think, when he signed on to fight Khabib. How many has he had since then? He had Cerrone, 2 Poiriers, Khabib. Who else has he fought? Is that it?
Honestly, I don't remember off the top of my head all the details of the contracts and stuff. So,
but yeah, I mean,
I can't really speak to it off the top of my head. But
I think that would be. I mean, if that was truly what he was doing, and he's like, hey, Conor McGregor tried to go box and didn't do it right. I'm going to show him how it's done and go do it myself. That's smart of him to be like, all right, yeah, that basically to use a term that's been used a lot in the past few years, a dog whistle to Conor McGregor to be like, hey, come join me and let's do this trilogy bout as a boxing match outside of the UFC, and we'll take all the money for ourselves.
Sure. I guess I just believe it'll happen when I see it, because I do think that the UFC is going to make it exceptionally hard for that to happen, and especially on a timeline neither of them really wants it to happen.
Makes sense. But I thought that was a savvy move to actually name drop Conor McGregor in there.
Absolutely. I think that's fair to say. I don't want to poke holes in you too much. I think that actually does make some sense.
Going back to Khamzat Chimaev, there's all these reasons you can dislike this guy, and, I buy into many of them. However, man, he's just so good. He's just an absolute force in the octagon.
Sky's the limit for him, especially at 185.
Yeah,
he can probably make way better.
I still think that it's going to be a miracle if this guy doesn't hold a belt.
We've seen implosions before, so I'm just gonna.
But we all thought we were witnessing his implosion this week. I think a lot of us thought we were witnessing his implosion this week. He's getting into fights with Paulo Costa. He's getting in fights with Kevin Holland. Nate Diaz is throwing a water bottle at him.
I mean, don't forget, this is somebody who legitimately said, "I'm retired," while he was battling COVID and the after effects of COVID, right? So, whether he was really meant it or not, it certainly came off as a legit thing. Anytime you start to hear that, it's like, well, what's this guy like? Is he in it or not? So
well,
I guess I see a lot of ways where this could still go wrong. But talent wise, if you just put his talent in a vacuum, this is someone who ought to be a champion for a long time. It's just there's so much more. Mentality in fighting is just a huge thing. Does he have the will to deal with some of the other BS, as it comes along? He's not always going to meet guys that he's going to run through, make a train wreck scenario like when he just destroyed Kevin Holland, which, by the way, if he fought Nate Diaz, that's what that fight would have looked like. 100%.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It really would have. And that would have been, not only would it have been very an unfortunate way for Nate Diaz to go out. And I think that's a lot of people saw it coming. I really thought that's what was going to happen. Maybe Nate gets a Stockton slap in there, right? But that's probably the only difference of that fight from one to the other. This was much better. It was not as deflating for the card in general. Realistically, if you're watching, we had the Chimaev fight, right? And it was very anticlimactic there, but it was also not the fight everyone was waiting for the entire night anymore. It made it a lot mentally. You're like, all right, at least we got this one, Yeah,
when we saw Holland and Chimaev, and it went pretty predictably. We were like, all right, well, that's out of the way. Now we can have some fun with Diaz and Ferguson. And I literally put my couch reclines and has the leg rest. I was sitting like this, forward with kind of leaning into the TV when it was Chimaev and Holland. And then when Diaz and Ferguson came out, I was like, all right, time to relax and enjoy this one. I put the legs up, I leaned back and just kind of enjoy that. And then once we got to the third round, I started all right, I need to pay attention to this a little bit more. So I leaned forward again. But
it's interesting that's where you went with that, because I would kind of go the other way. I'd be like, all right, this is gonna be whatever, so I'm just gonna chill and let it happen. And then when the other one would start, I'd be like, okay, now let's go see.
I think it's because with Holland, I was rooting for him so hard that I was like, come on, just do something, man. I know he's pulled off stuff that I don't think anybody expected. Have Jacare in your guard and you knock him out from the bottom, with not even with an up kick, with a punch. It's damn, this guy has some unexpected qualities or unexpected tricks that he can pull out. But
speaking of up kicks, though, quick aside before we go back, the amazing up kick liver shot knockout, which I couldn't find anybody in social media who'd actually been like, yeah, I've seen that before. It was in this fight on the regional scene. I've never seen it. No one seemed to have seen it. We didn't even know what we saw until it was over. Everyone was like, what happened? How did the fight end? And then we figure out, oh, it was a liver shot. Okay, that makes sense. Liver shots end the fight. There's no coming back from a liver shot in mixed martial arts. You can't do it. They don't give you the chance.
I don't know. Tai Tuivasa.
And no, it wasn't the same. But no, to be clear, that was Irene Aldana getting that on Macy Chiasson. I want to make sure the names were there too.
By the way, did you
all respect to Aldana?
When that happened in real time, what did you think happened?
I thought she got hurt. I was kind of relying on the broadcast a little bit. I assumed there was some sort of injury there that was what happened there, but I couldn't even tell really. I was more, usually when I'm watching a fight and something like that happens, the only thing that's going through my head is what happened. I'm just trying to figure it out rather than I'm waiting for them to tell me and give me. So I'm trying to pay attention.
I thought she broke her rib at first.
Okay.
Cause I didn't see it hitting her abdominal region, where the liver would be. I thought it hit her rib cage, and I thought maybe she shattered Chiason's ribs. But no, it was on replay. I was like, wow, that is just a precision up kick with the heel directly where the liver is.
Well, the other side of it for me is I have other work responsibilities at that point in the night before we get into like kind of the latter stage of the night. Usually they let me focus on like the last couple fights or whatever, but a lot of the early proceedings, I have other duties for the New York Post that I have to take care of as well. And sometimes I just miss that kind of thing. So I'm like watching as close as I can while also doing my job as professionally as I can.
Sure. I was just like, man, like the way that Chiason crumpled, I was like, what the hell happened? Because Aldana's already on the ground. Her back is on the ground and she's just throwing up kicks. And, we see people just wildly throwing up kicks all the time. And it's like nothing really ever comes of it. They glance off the shoulder. They glance off the arms. Every once in a while, we'll see an up kick KO of like hitting him in the head.
Sure.
But
good chin shot. Yeah.
It's so rare. Like you said, I've never seen this before. It's never happened in the UFC before, and I've never seen anybody else who's seen this before. I mean, maybe Kaposa knows something that this has happened.
I tried to ask Kaposa. I don't think he saw it, but I mean, I was trying to ask him, like, have you ever seen this before? I should reach out to him anyway.
That's so wild. But amazing work by Irene Aldana.
Sure. But anyway, back to, of course, the big fights here, right?
Yeah. I think that, Diaz Ferguson went, I think, best case scenario. Of course, it's tough for me because this was one of those fights where it's like, all right, going into fight week, I knew who I was rooting for in each fight. Mm-hmm. Then we shuffled it up. It's like, all right, I'm still rooting for Holland, probably rooting for Leach just because he had such a rough week. And I think Leach was, and I'm not going to say robbed because it was a close fight, but I think Leach won that fight and D-Rod got the victory. I think it was 29-28 Leach, but
I have not actually had the chance to really watch that fight yet. We delayed our judging podcast by a day. My buddy was at the Giants game in Nashville, so we put that off. But one note on the Leach, apparently, that his nickname in Mandarin, I'm told by a Twitter account, Nebula 69824 045. Now, granted, this is a word and numbers, right? But this seems like a legit answer here. His nickname in Mandarin, is I'm quoting here, which I believe is his mother tongue, is a demon who feeds on blood, like an evil vampire. Definitely not any kind of parasitic worm. I don't know why they translate in the lamest way. Apparently, this is what the person's saying.
I always just thought it was a play off of Li Jing Lian.
I think that's what someone else kind of suggested as well in the comments. But yes, apparently that's what is being said here. I can't confirm that. So that is from this one name and numbers account here. Maybe it's true. I don't speak Mandarin, and I used to have a friend speak Mandarin. She moved away, so we've kind of lost touch. But yeah, I wish I could get that.
But yeah, I was poor Leach, from the press conference, not be able to wear his custom suit that he bought.
Oh, it was great
just for the press conference. It was a great suit.
I'm not a suit guy, but
he looked sharp.
That was pretty sharp. I gotta say, he rocked it well.
He didn't get to use that because the press conference was canceled because of factors outside of his control.
Of course.
Did you see him helping Tony Ferguson not trip on the wire when he was doing
that
interviews?
That was the MVP move of the week.
Oh,
I mean,
my God. Could you
just imagine if he trips on the wire again? Then we don't even get that fight.
That becomes a story of his career. If that happens twice,
yeah.
I mean, it's already like, oh wow, what a freak thing! That's a cable on what was it, a Fox set made it so we didn't get Tony and Habib.
Yeah, it was something like that.
If it happened twice, that becomes a thing. Like, man, maybe Tony just has a problem with cables.
Where do you sit now? By the way, do you think that if they actually finally got Khabib and Tony to the cage and referee said fight, that who wins? The main question is who wins.
I think Khabib definitely wins.
I think Khabib definitely
wins. I think that in his prime, Tony would have put up a good fight.
I think he could have. I think he'd been capable of it. But yeah, I always thought Khabib was the better guy. I wanted to see that fight because it was interesting. But hindsight doesn't,
it's hard to compare
base on what we're seeing from Khabib now and Tony now, because we're not seeing Khabib now. We're seeing Tony on obviously the back end of his career.
Yeah.
But yeah,
what I was getting at was I didn't know who I was going to root for in the main event now. I was obviously rooting for Diaz, and it's like, oh my God, who am I going to root for in this main event? And I think I ultimately ended up rooting for Tony just because it's the way I was looking at it was Tony Ferguson is in my top 3 active fighters. That's the way it is right now. That I like for me. Diaz is probably in my top 10. So it's like they're both like favorite fighters, but like Tony's just a little bit higher up in that list.
Sure.
But still, it was like I kind of just sat back. I was like, all right, the stakes for me are one of my favorite fighters is going to win and one of them is going to lose. And it sucks that one of them's going to lose, but at least it's to like a guy that he seemingly respects, he seemingly likes. Like, I haven't seen Tony be like that relaxed in the octagon in a long time. And Diaz also was having a little bit of fun with it too.
Well, Diaz, I mean, Nate Diaz knew that this was his last rodeo in the UFC for at least a little while.
Yeah, I think that it had a decidedly different tone than like the sanctioned execution that we were probably going to get with Khamzat coming into the octagon.
Yeah, almost assuredly that was what it would have been.
So it was nice to have to cruise into that main event knowing that it probably was not going to be like just an just an absolute slaughter that we would have gotten like we got in the co-main event.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting to me that, you know, for a long time there was this picture that was going around when Tony Ferguson was on his long win streak, where it was just a collage of all of his opponents during that win streak, and all of their faces were just sliced to hell. And Diaz, not only is he known for bleeding a lot when he gets hit, but he didn't have a single. He had some scratches on him. Obviously, he was in a 3.5 round fight against Tony Ferguson, but he was not bleeding the way he has in past fights. But in fact, he was the one who made Tony Ferguson bleed a lot. Like,
well,
Ferguson
especially from that checked kick there, right?
But he had a couple cuts on
shin.
He had a couple cuts in his eyebrow too that were bothering Tony Ferguson. And it was just interesting that like Ferguson, it wasn't like he was getting like completely outclassed on the feet. Like, I think Diaz was getting the better of a lot of exchanges, but Ferguson was landing some too. But it was a competitive fight. He was not making Diaz bleed the way you typically believe Diaz is going to bleed in almost every fight that he steps into, and also the way Ferguson has traditionally made his opponents look. Instead, Ferguson was the one bleeding, which caught me off guard.
You know, the funny thing is actually one of the judges through 3 rounds had Tony Ferguson up 2 rounds to 1.
I think I was actually leaning in that way. I think that it was 2-1 either way, I think. And I think they were close enough that I was not 100% sure, but I think I was leaning Ferguson up.
I've not had the chance to watch that fight close. I wasn't watching it to score. Like, I was watching it from the sense of I'm going to be writing a column off of, you know, this event, this fight, this kind of thing. So I'm watching it in a much different way at this in this particular instance. So I don't really have an opinion on that yet. I do have to kind of sit down and really watch the fight to score. But yeah, no, 2 judges had it 3-0 in Diaz's favor, and then one judge had it 29-28, rounds 2 and 3 for Ferguson. So
I mean, I think it's clear that before the shot from Tony in round 4, I thought Diaz was winning that round pretty handily.
I kind of passively, like I said, I didn't watch, so take this with a grain of salt. I thought Diaz was generally winning the fight, and I would say generally winning the rounds too. I think things were heading his way, if nothing else, and obviously he was able to capitalize and get it done too. With that guillotine choke. Perfect way to end it too, by the way, with a submission on the ground. I think the way we pictured Nate Diaz in fights is winning submissions. Like, when we think of him, if he's actually doing an action and not some sort of, you know, pointing or gesturing or slap, or, you know, he's done the slap, right? That almost counts too. But what are the indelible images of him actually getting stuff done? We're talking about somebody who
just like him flexing in the camera after submitting Conor McGregor again, a submission.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to get something out of my eye. My contact kind of moving around as I'm kind of stuttering here. Right, yeah, we're flexing as he wins here. The middle fingers flipping the bird with the victory with the triangle choke. And then of course the submission win over Conor McGregor. Like,
and of course. Yeah. The post-fight interviews. I'm not surprised that you're taking everything I'm worked for.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's that. I'm talking specifically about the action, yeah.
Sure, but yeah, those are the things. And if this is Nate Diaz's final UFC fight, which I tend to lean that it is, even if he like says, "Okay, you know, I'm going to come back,"
I don't see him coming back.
I don't know if he actually comes back, especially if he makes the big payday that he probably will make outside of the UFC. Like, why would he come back? Especially,
I don't think he needs it. I bet he doesn't. And he's 30. He's 37. He's a little older than I am. just by a couple months. You know, when does he want to compete again? When does he want to get back into the UFC? Will he be 40 by then? I mean, not that you can't compete past there, but I mean, shoot, what's the point? Are they going to give him the money he wants? I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah, maybe for one last fight. Like maybe they bring him back and they're like, hey, we'll give you the Conor McGregor trilogy. Whatever. Maybe Conor's still fighting at that point. Maybe Conor has one fight left on his contract, and that's like what they want. Who knows?
All right, let's wrap it up here with this particular event. I want to ask you, how did this event shake up? Was it worth your money?
I think it ultimately was, just because that main event was something that we all wanted and we didn't expect, and then suddenly it manifested after we all said like, hey, this is the fight we would rather have. I think that overall the fights were entertaining. I mean, obviously the most entertaining fight was Chris Barnett and Jake Collier, which was unexpected.
Well, and that was on the prelims too.
Yeah.
So.
But I think that
in
overall,
terms of pay-per-view, shoot, we mentioned Aldana, we mentioned Nate Diaz and Ferguson was a fun fight. I don't think it was like an amazing fight. It was just a fun fight.
Yeah,
it didn't win fight of the night, and I don't think it needed to.
Johnny Walker looked good.
Anticlimactic. Yeah, Johnny Walker. Honestly, that was a really fun one round fight too. Went almost the full round there. And Aldana Chason, I thought was at least a very entertaining fight. You know, it was back and forth, like kind of on extreme ends, right? You had one big round from Aldana and one big round from Chason, and then round 3 obviously ends the way it does with that up kick. I think the violence really delivered here, honestly. And Rodriguez and Lee, that was also a very fun fight.
Yeah, and the people booing the D-Rod Leach fight, like, get the hell out of here with that. Like,
honestly, I don't even want them to go back to Vegas for a while. I think they need a break. I think the Vegas fans be like, you know what? Take the show on the road. And I don't mean the Apex or whatever. You want to the Apex, fine. It's a different thing. If you're thinking about going to T-Mobile, maybe don't. Just go somewhere else.
It's funny. Like, this is me just kind of throwing shade at the UFC a little bit, but their whole thing was, we're going to be the first ones back. We're going to be the first ones back. Not only are they still doing Apex shows with very few fans, which is like their pandemic model,
but they make a lot of money off of those fans.
They do. But at the same time, the NBA hasn't done a crowdless show in how many years now? Like, it's been like 2 years, right? So it's like the UFC is still operating semi in the pandemic model. Meanwhile, the NFL, the NBA, the MLB are filling stadiums.
I think part of that is the UFC is just, they know that they can be like, well, we don't need to come to your venue. So they're hoping to do this is my read on the situation, and just kind of from outside
absolutely.
of it is, you know, they're hoping to get favorable deals from places that they would go to, places that would welcome them, and want to make sure they're going to places that let's say are going to not give them difficulties when it comes to COVID and that kind of thing, which is why they haven't been to Canada. You know, that's obviously a big thing up there. So I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see how things go. I don't imagine they'll be in Canada before Canada lifts any sort of restrictions on, you know, vaccinations and that kind of thing. they're not even going to bother. I don't even think they'll try to put a fight up there with only only vaccinated fighters. Who knows what that percentage is?
Yeah, but like, it's so funny that they were like, oh, you know, we're going to be the first ones back. And you know what? Maybe they were. They were one of the first ones to hold a stadium show once, like, what was it, last year? Was it the year before? No, it wasn't the year before, because that was 2020. But like, as far as like stadium shows.
They got back into, they were first one back was, I believe, Jacksonville.
Yeah. But after that, they're the ones that remain 1 foot in the COVID style of shows, whereas everybody else has kind of opened up their stadiums.
But they still won on this, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of people who just came to the sport because it was the only thing happening during the pandemic. I actually met somebody at a barbecue recently, a friend's barbecue. Met someone's friend there, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm a big UFC fan." I'm like, "When you start watching?" It's like during the pandemic. I'm like, "Wow, that's fascinating." Like,
yeah, well, I mean,
he was following along with what was happening at UFC Paris, right? And he was the one who actually tipped me off to one of the fights that I've been sort of following along, but I'm also at a party and trying to socialize and that kind of thing. But he told me the result of one. I was like, oh, this guy's actually really paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that they continued and kind of really saved ESPN Plus, really, because like, I think a lot of people would probably have unsubscribed if there was just no live sports. And
sure.
UFC,
easy cutoff.
UFC made that happen. But as far as what's coming on the horizon here, we do have UFC Fight Night Sandhagen versus Song
in Vegas.
in Vegas
at the Apex,
at
which
the
is
Apex.
again, you want to do Apex, fine. I actually kind of like the Apex vibe without much crowd. I kind of like it.
So, I mean, obviously we have a pretty good main event here.
I really like this main event, actually.
I'm excited for this.
Sandhagen, Song Yadong.
However, what do you think about this undercard?
I like a lot of the fighters. I don't love a lot of the fights. I do think this is actually an event that's actually going to come through with some good entertainment value. Like we look at these and we're like, oh, whatever. But then they always end up being like fun, right? And I see the potential for that here. And I'm not trying to just be general. I think it probably is coming off that way, unfortunately. But a fight like Chidi Njokuani and Gregory Rodriguez, is that one really getting anybody to the table? Probably not. But I bet you that one's fire. Mm-hmm. I actually think that's going to be a really good fight. Andre Fili, Bill Algeo. A lot of people don't know these guys, but that one has a lot of fireworks potential.
I feel like
Tanner Bozer's even a fun heavyweight to watch. I don't think he's a bad heavyweight to watch. There's fights here that I think we're really going to be entertained by. It's just, do people care enough to come to this particular product if they have to go out of their way for it?
I don't think they do.
Yeah, I think
that Corey Sandhagen and Song Yadong are obviously very well-established fighters in the UFC.
And they're basically the future, too. I mean, there's a lot of, these guys are going to probably be here a while.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that, I'm not going to do the same thing I did for Khamzat, where it's I'd be surprised if he never holds a belt. But I would be surprised if Sandhagen has a sharp decline and gets out of the title picture anytime soon.
Yeah, Sandhagen, I almost think because he's so good, he got so good kind of so quickly. He's not a young guy. He's I think he's 30 actually, but 30 is still, he is 30. He turned 30 on 420.
Your athletic prime.
But this is someone who I think has a lot of really good years of fighting ahead of him. He's only been fighting professionally just about 7 years. Usually you see fighters hit their actual fighting prime around year 8, 9, 10. We're not there yet. And he's had very competitive fights with Peter Yan, with TJ Dillashaw, arguably won the Dillashaw fight. A lot of people can make the argument. It's you could go either way, but the fact that you could go either way with TJ Dillashaw, and they both know each other very well. They're fighting stars. They train together, that kind of thing. I see a lot of potential for him to get back to that belt, like you're saying. Yeah, I think so.
The unfortunate thing is that he has his only very quick loss or very one-sided loss to the current champion, Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to preclude him necessarily if he goes on a pretty good run. I think it's more harmful that he's now lost 2 fights in a row, high-profile fights in a row, because the Sterling fight, we're now 2 years removed from it.
Yeah.
And I think Aljamain Sterling has enough respect for him to, if he was to get back there, I don't think, let's say he's still the champion, I don't think he would dismiss the idea of it. But let's say the next fight after this, it's Corey Sandhagen against Merab Dvalishvili or somebody like that. That would be a very tough stylistic matchup. So I don't know.
Anybody against Merab is a tough stylistic matchup.
Of course. And I don't want to go too far flung, right? We're talking about Sandhagen and Song right here, right? Song he's honestly really, really good prospect in the sport. He's young. This is someone who is actually only 24 years old. He'll turn 25 in a couple months.
I did not realize he was so young.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I mean, because he's been around a while, right? He's been in the UFC going back 5 years. He came along very, very young. And he is, I think, I don't want to go as far as to say he's like a special talent. I don't know that we've seen that from him yet, but I do think he has championship potential.
I mean, he has wins over, and again, he's come a long way since this fight, but he beat Chito Vera in 2020.
He's coming off the knockout
Kenny.
that retired Marlon Moraes.
Yeah, Marlon Moraes, Casey Kenny. So Chito Vera, very likely a future title contender. I think he's 1 win away at most. Marlon Moraes, former title challenger. And, he's now fighting Corey Sandhagen, who has fought top tier competition and has shown that he is very, very comfortable among that top tier competition.
What's cool about this fight too is I do think there are a lot of fireworks potential here too. I think both of these guys are going to come, not necessarily like stand and trade or anything like that, but the Sandhagen always has that like explosive knockout potential. And it's not because you look at him as like this powerhouse, right? He's a 135er, but he's kind of a thin and raily, 135er, right? But we've just seen this violently explosive knockout ability from him on multiple occasions.
Frankie Edgar, Marlon Moraes.
Yeah, this is a guy that, oh my goodness, there's violence potential every second of the fight. There's fight ending potential any second, as opposed to just, okay, he's got to kind of work it his way. He's got to get it to certain areas, like literally any point that they're at roughly striking range, it can happen here. And Song, coming off of 2 straight KOs, obviously an actual straight up KO of Moraes. Right before that, he had a TKO of Julio Arce, who I think is a very solid striker as well. Yeah. And we're talking about somebody who this striking is his thing, and he got knocked out too. This is someone who's got a high potential for violence here. I think we're in for a really fun fight. I doubt it's going to go the distance. I don't make a pick here, but I think it's not going very far.
I don't know, man. Like, it's we've said that a lot of times, and it has gone the distance. Like, I didn't think that
sure. Don't
Costa
bet because
Rockhold,
of what I said, but
I didn't think Costa Rockhold had any chance of going the distance. And then look what we got.
Yeah,
we got Rockhold rubbing his blood all over Costa.
Well, I mean, most people saw that coming.
Yeah, that was the more predictable outcome than
easily
going the distance.
The most foreseeable thing. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, let's get to our rankings or our rating here before we
rate the main event. What do you think?
I'm going to say 3.5.
Oh, I'm going all the way to a 4.
Damn.
I love this fight.
I toyed with that one for the main event. But I'm going to go 3.5.
And it's bantamweights, dude. I mean, everybody loves the bantamweights now. I know it's a trendy thing. I still say that 155 is the deepest division, but I think bantamweight certainly deserves its flowers that it's getting from people, because these fighters are they're fun. And these are guys in particular that have power, fight-ending power to them. And Sandhagen's high volume too. Like, this isn't even somebody who's just like relying on that one strike kind of thing. He's one of the most high volume strikers out there as well. So I think we're going to see action throughout is what I'm expecting, unless for some reason Song decides, okay, we're just going to make this takedowns. And I don't know that he's got it in him to just be a straight wrestler for 5 rounds. So I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun matchup. For the overall event, maybe a little bit lower on that.
And remember, what we're rating here is our interest. It's not necessarily if it's a good one, right? Like, you can see ones that are like star packed or like packed with fights that are impactful, but how interested are you in those fights compared to it? Like, when you're thinking, hey, am I going to tune in and have a good time? What's your interest levels?
I'm between a 2.5 and a 3.
I think I'm at a 3.
That's where I was leaning. I was leaning a 3. And it's only because, there are some good matchups, like we had mentioned, Njokuani versus Rodriguez, Fili Algio. I'm always excited to see Tanner Bozier, Anthony Hernandez, Damon Jackson.
Damon Jackson versus Pat Sabatini is a fun one. I like Anthony Hernandez and Marc-Andre Barrios. I think that's going to be a fun one too.
Aspen Ladd versus Sarah McMahon is actually a decent matchup.
I don't think that's going to be very fun. I don't think
it's going to be fun, but I think it's going to be a decent matchup
it's an important matchup in the scheme of the bantamweight division.
Yeah, because there's no fighters in the bantamweight division.
There's some. It's not featherweight, but which realistically, Aspen Ladd probably should be a featherweight. But
yeah,
that's another conversation.
We'll see how that shakes out this coming Friday.
I hope that she just makes weight healthily. Honestly, whenever I see Aspen Ladd and 135, I'm just rooting for her to not destroy her kidneys. I'm literally praying that she's okay.
But also, Loma Lukbunmi is on this card. I did not realize. I completely missed that.
Oh, she's fun too. Yeah, the Muay Thai specialist.
The one who, if there was an atomweight division, maybe she would.
She'd probably have some impact there. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
But we don't have that.
I really wish we had that. But I guess they better focus on filling out the women's divisions that they do have, like bantamweight and featherweight. I
think that they could fill out a rankings for 105 much better than they could fill out for 145.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's even if they were allowed to just poach every fighter from every promotion, which they can't, of course.
And I forgot
Bellator has a legit 145-pound division. It's still not great, but it actually is. There's some legit fighters there.
I forgot that this card was supposed to have Giga Chikadze versus Sadiq Youssef. That would have been a fun fight.
Yes, that was a big loss here. Honestly, I think that would have kicked it up a notch because I really like Giga. I like
that's a
watching him fight.
legit co-main event right there.
It's a solid one, yeah, for a fight night, absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm gonna go with 3 for overall. So 3.5 in the main event, which I could see 4. I was closer to a 4 than I was a 3 for the main event, but I'm gonna go 3.5, and I'm gonna say 3 for the. Jillian Robertson's also on this. She's always fun.
You're naming a lot of individuals you're actually really interested in.
Yeah, because I keep finding new people.
But that's where I'm at here. Is like I don't think there's not really 1 or 2 fights even that I feel like, man, I really want to see this fight. But like I kind of want to see most of them to some degree, and I think that speaks to a good level of interest too. You have to rate that, so that's why I'm at a 3. I don't think I can go much higher, just because again, there's not really that one that's like tipping me over like there would be if it was Giga against Sadiq Yusuff. So I'm good here. I like this one. 3 and a 4. I have a 3 and a 4, so I average out to a 3.5. You average out a little less, like 3 1/4, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. It's solid. I think it's a solid fight night. I'm happy with this one. I don't know where we sit with the future weeks. We'll get to those when we get to those. But this one, I'm cool with. I'm okay with this one.
Yeah, I think I was looking at the calendar actually of like what's coming up, and there's some ones I'm probably going to be skipping.
Nah, but we'll get to those. We can't
will
go deep into that. Real quick though, just because we always do this, is there one fight you can't miss other than that main event? Like, we'll just go with one real quick.
Oh boy. Maybe it's the Damon Jackson, Pat Sabatini. Maybe it's Tanner Bozier. Although I think I'm probably just going to go with the co-main event, Njokuani versus Rodriguez.
The current one, it seems like that is kind of slotted in there,
yeah.
Right? But we don't know. I mean, maybe Sadiq Yusuff gets an interesting opponent. We don't know.
Oh yeah, because they did have him on the thing still as TBD.
He's kind of still like in the mix of like I don't think they've ruled out that he could compete.
What are the odds they just kick that down the line somewhere? Like, we'll give you an opponent in 3 weeks. We can't find anybody.
We don't know the scenario, but yeah, if Sadiq Yusuff stays on there and they get a really interesting opponent, potentially that. But as it stands, the one I'm most interested in is with the one that seems like it's slotted as the co-main is Njokuani and Rodriguez. That one I like the best too.
Yeah, but I think that's enough about the fight world.
Yeah, I want to get to games too, because I'm actually interested in you kind of updating me on a lot of this stuff, because on Saturday I was very busy, covering the fights, but also it was the first day of soccer for my son. I am coaching. So we had a meet and greet. It wasn't like an actual full practice.
Got Coach Scott.
Greet, so I had to kind of deal with that.
Did you get a whistle?
No, I didn't get a whistle. My son asked me, are you going to get a whistle? And I was like, should I?
You should get a whistle.
All right, maybe I'll get a whistle.
What's the outfit that Coach Scott wears here?
I wore a green shirt so that they knew where to go to pick up their green shirts.
Oh, okay.
I was
picturing you with like gray sweatpants and a white polo.
It is way too warm for sweatpants.
And a whistle.
And maybe a hat.
Sweatpants. Maybe a nice cap as well.
I should have wore my my bucket hat, because that would protect me from the sun a little bit. I'm not burned, but yeah, I don't always do well in the sun. So
when you're not coaching, what are you playing?
Oh, gaming wise?
Yeah, it's what we're moving on to.
I didn't play much this week, man. I really didn't. So, Hot Wheels Unleashed, I played a little bit for my kids because they love it. There's not really much to say other than I've been opening a lot of boxes, and we're trying to get the it's a monster truck firefighter, like fire truck hybrid called 5 Alarm, and my children want this very badly because they love monster trucks and fire trucks. So it's pretty much.
So they saw that and they're like, "We've got to have it."
I think they probably want me to buy one in real life, like not as a toy, but like a real thing. But that's really all I had time for. But again, back to Saturday, I didn't have time to follow all the developments coming out of the Assassin's Creed franchise. I need you for that, sir.
Yeah, so we had Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is like the next mainline game. Comes out in 2023.
Where is this one going to be?
Baghdad.
Okay, so yeah, it kind of looked like that. Is it Basim?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
And we have, let's see, Shorey Aghdashloo, who is Emmy-winning actress voicing Roshan, his mentor. She has a very, very distinct voice. Like, if you heard it, you'd be like, oh yeah, I've heard her in a million things.
Okay, sure.
And all new parkour animation, new moves that he can use while he's climbing and parkouring.
Is this because I'm just gonna ask you questions here too. I'm probably gonna be cutting you off because I'm curious about this. Is this gonna be more like the recent Assassin's Creeds, or are they going back in that formula? We sort of talked about that last week.
It sounds like it's going to be less of like a huge RPG. It sounds like it's going to be more scaled down. I don't know if it's like technically back in the old style in terms of like gameplay and everything, but
Sure.
I think there's going to be a lot of like it's almost going to be like a hybrid of the two.
All right.
But it seems like it's smaller scale.
I like the idea of something that I can, play through in like less than 4 months.
Yeah, that would be nice. But yeah, 2023 release for that. We also got some other announcements, lots of announcements. So we have Assassin's Creed Codename Red, which is taking place in feudal Japan. It's a mainline entry.
The video for that looked amazing, by the way.
Right? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Codename Red being developed by Ubisoft Quebec, which was the studio behind Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Okay.
Then we have Assassin's Creed Infinity, which is basically like a hub. It's like a launcher. Think of like, I don't know if you play like Blizzard games, but think of it as like
so much
BattleNet for all your Assassin's Creed games. It's going to be a hub where it's like, all right, I want to play this. And it's already open basically because you have your Assassin's Creed Infinity hub. It's basically the thing that links all of your Assassin's Creed experiences together into one cohesive thing. It says that it's going to unite the company's different experiences and its players in, quote, meaningful ways. We don't really know how that's going to be, but they also did say that as a part of this, they're going to be bringing back multiplayer as a standalone experience.
Not enthused for that. I don't care. But
there are people who love that,
who
love the
like
multiplayer.
Good for them.
We got a couple other code names. We've got Assassin's Creed codename Hexy.
Okay.
Hexy, which is another mainline entry further down the road. So codename Red, codename
about
Hexy. It looks like it's going to be taking place during the Salem witch trials, if I had to guess.
Okay.
Which is kind of a cool idea. And it is going to be developed by Ubisoft Montreal, who was the developer, the mainline Assassin's Creed developer for many, many years. And they're the ones who created the Assassin's Creed franchise. So it's cool that they're coming back with that. And then we have the very, very few details on either that or Codename Red, aside from like really, they told us like feudal Japan is Codename Red, and then they just kind of gave us hints about Assassin's Creed Hexy, which they didn't actually flat out say it was Salem or anything like that. But it looks very witchy, so I would think that it's going to be Salem Witch Trials. Then we have Assassin's Creed Codename Jade, which is a mobile game set in China.
I kind of figured it would be based on the name. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then we have Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the last chapter, which is just going to be like, it's a final quest that's going to wrap up Ivor's because it could be a man or a woman.
That's
their
right.
narrative, their storyline. And I guess they say it will reunite Ivor with key characters, including some with historical significance. But we don't know when that's coming. Presumably it's going to be next year sometime. But
is it Ivor or Eivor? I thought it was Eivor.
I don't know, man. I played like 5 hours of Valhalla and I was just overwhelmed.
Oh, okay. I played it all the way through. I think it's Eivor.
Okay. Well, it might be Eivor. There's a 15th anniversary documentary of Assassin's Creed that is coming out. There's an Assassin's Creed Netflix series, a live action series, which was already announced, but they recommitted to that. They're saying, hey, there's a live action series. Then Ubisoft also, they had one of the guys who's in charge of Netflix gaming, because Netflix is starting to publish games and like provide them exclusively to their subscribers. They're all mobile games to this point, but they said there's going to be 3 exclusive Ubisoft games coming as part of that in the coming years. In 2023, we're going to get a sequel to Valiant Hearts, which was a World War I like narrative-driven puzzle game, which apparently, if you play it, it's illegal to not cry during that because it's just like heart-wrenching.
Okay.
There's going to be a sequel to that. There's going to be a sequel to Mighty Quest, which is like a kind of like a roguelite hack and slash style game. There's a sequel to that coming as well. Both those are in 2023. And then they also said there's another Assassin's Creed mobile game coming exclusively for Netflix subscribers. And all these games are microtransaction and ad free, so that's good. It's kind of like Apple Arcade in that way, where it's like you pay the subscription service and you can just download these games as part of that. So then, there's just a lot. There's a new podcast coming, Assassin's Creed Echoes of History, a new novel called The Magnus Conspiracy, and then there's some Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag web cartoons coming.
Yeah,
Lots of Assassin's Creed
exhausting.
Stuff. It is.
That's exhausting. I just out of all the things you named for me, I can't not be interested in an Assassin's Creed mainline game like Mirage.
Yeah.
You know, hearing that it's going to be smaller actually brings me more into it than if they said, oh, it's going to be 2 times bigger than Valhalla. I'd be like, you know what? Maybe this is where I get out. I don't have time anymore for it. It's just way too much. Like there's a point where I don't want more for my $60, $70, what have you. I kind of want it to just be tighter, but more enjoyable. That's where I want. But okay, you're telling me it's scaled down. Fine. Codename Red sounds fantastic. Is it going to be called Codename Red, or is that just like what they're calling it now?
They just all have code names for now, and eventually we'll get the actual name.
Just making sure, because you never know. Maybe they're doing something with the Animus and all that kind of thing, and they actually want to call it Codename Red. I'm like, oh my god, please don't do that. But okay, yeah, that's I'm very much interested in that. That's like the whole like Shinobi simulator kind of deal, right?
It looks like it, yeah.
That's
looks like
very interesting to me.
What we've wanted since Assassin's Creed came out, basically.
And I very much had felt like, okay, well, you know what? I got that with Ghost of Tsushima. I don't think I need that anymore. Just the way that they did a really good job of at least piquing my interest. I'm like, you have my attention again. I will say that. Like, I need to see much more before I'm like, take my money, But I'm back in. You have my ear.
But presumably that is the next mainline Assassin's Creed game after Mirage. So
sure.
Theoretically,
all these other ones, though, I don't know. Of all the other stuff, I'm sure that Assassin's Creed has like these passionate fans who can't get enough of everything. But like, I'm starting to be like, man, maybe this is a bit much. I'm going to pick and choose.
Yeah, and they've disappeared from the spotlight for a little bit. Like ever since Valhalla came out, like they put out some content drops, but it hasn't been like before where it was like, all right, every year we've got to get at least one Assassin's Creed game. Remember, we were getting
thank God, I'm happy for that. I don't
too.
want that. They at least gave you time to finish Valhalla here. Like, imagine if they had said, okay, it's another year, we got another game out, and be like, dude, I got like 30 hours into Valhalla, and like that's a good length of time, but I'm still not halfway. Like that'd be ridiculous. But here, at least I like the cadence there. Give it every 2 years. That's good.
Yeah. So we had some other stuff outside of Assassin's Creed. I was playing Splatoon 3. That was the review game that I mentioned last week that I couldn't talk about.
How is your time with it now?
I loved it. I had a great time with it. The single player is a lot of fun. It kind of brings that Nintendo creativity, and like Nintendo keeps marketing this as, hey, this is a great way to like learn how to play the game. You'll experiment with the weapons. You'll learn about like traversal. And it is all of those things, but I don't want people to think the single player is just like a glamorized tutorial. I want people to actually realize that this is just a fun single player story mode as well. The story, I don't care. But like the gameplay and like the
actual
puzzles,
narrative yourself, you don't care.
I don't care about that. But like all the puzzles that you have to solve, all like the little like action sequences they shepherd you through, those are so much fun. And I had a blast trying to like solve them, and some of them are actually rather difficult. And like exploring kind of like the hub world that they throw you in is a lot of fun as well, and it's very rewarding. They give you a lot of like cosmetics and stuff you can unlock as you go, and it's just really fun. And the multiplayer remains the star of the show. There's Salmon Run, which is basically their version of Horde mode. They've made a lot of improvements in that regard, including making it available 24 hours a day, which was something that was not the case before. You had to go on certain times to play Splatoon 2's Horde mode, which was Salmon Run.
Yeah, that would actually drive me nuts, because I'm like, I don't play it most times. I would probably miss out entirely if I did. Even if I was invested, I'd probably miss it.
Outside of the review period, I don't think I ever played it once, because I would log on and be like, oh, I'm kind of in the mood for this. Oh, I need to come back in 3 hours because it's not available right now. It sucked.
I'm not building my life around a game company's schedule.
Exactly. The point that I've made over and over again on like several different shows at this point is that like if you have like if people aren't making TV shows that they're obsessed with appointment viewing at this point, like they're always just like, oh, I can watch it on demand, I can watch it on streaming. Why would they make it that way with gaming? Like adults in particular have like very limited windows at times where they can game, right? Especially if you're like a parent or something. Like you can't build your life around gaming in that way. So like,
no, I build gaming around my life.
Exactly. So like restricting the windows in which people can play certain modes just feels so antiquated. And like, that's like early 2000s stuff. And the fact that Nintendo heard that complaint and made it available 24/7 is a huge upgrade. They added a bunch of new bosses that you fight against in that mode. But the multiplayer itself is just like the competitive 4v4 turf wars, which the whole thing is you're just going around spraying your ink, trying to make as big of a mess as possible while your other team is trying to do the same. And if you shoot the other teammate or the other members of the members of the other team enough, they explode in your color ink, making an even bigger mess. Like, it's such a rewarding and fun mode, and it's only 3 minutes long. So it's like you get in, get out. And then it's like, all right, do you want to go into the next one? Yes, I do. And then it sends you right into the next lobby. It is very, very good for like both quick bite-sized gaming sessions if you want. If you want to just jump in for 10 minutes, you can play 3 matches, which is amazing. Or you can fall victim to the just one more match. It's only 3 minutes, just one more match. And I've done that where it's like, all right, wow, I've been playing for like 45 minutes now. And it just kind of, you lose track of time. It's so good in that way. It's so frantic. Almost every match plays out differently, even though you're only going between 2 different maps in an hour span because they rotate which maps are available. And it's just an overall really fun package. And it's the best entry in the series so far.
That's I mean, what more can you ask for, I guess, from a sequel, right? The idea is to make it so that's that one you want to play instead of the last ones.
Now, Scott, real quick, before we kind of move on, did you see, because you were saying you kind of fell behind, because I don't blame you, because your job is involved around the fight game. And this was one of the most chaotic fight weeks we've had in a long, long time.
It was a weird one. It was kind of arresting that Friday, all that Friday stuff.
So in all likelihood, you missed the Marvel Games showcase, the Disney and Marvel Games showcase.
I did miss it. Yeah, I honestly don't really know a whole lot about it. I think, did I hear something about a Captain America / Black Panther game?
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing?
So Skydance, which is the studio that Amy Hennig, who you may know as the creator of the Uncharted series.
Yeah, from Naughty Dog, yeah.
She is the head of this studio, Skydance New Media. It's a branch of Skydance Interactive, who has done like some VR games, and they also have they've distributed a bunch of movies as well. Skydance New Media is their first game is an untitled Marvel movie taking place during World War II, seemingly in Europe. The cinematic reveal trailer took place in Paris, but they call it a globe-trotting adventure, and it is it's a game starring Captain America, Steve Rogers, and Black Panther. I forget the actual character's name, but it's T'Challa's grandfather. Okay. Taking place during World War II, because the Black Panther mantle is passed down through the generations.
Sure. The idea of Black Panther is immortal. The mask and mantle is immortal, but the people are not.
Correct. And so it's starring those two, and then 2 other heroes who are not superheroes, technically. Like, one of them's a World War II soldier, and the other one is a member of the Wakanda spy network. Okay. So you are it's four heroes you play as you go throughout different parts of the world, and you're completing these different missions. And it seems like your perspective will change. So you'll play as Captain America in this one, then you'll play in Black Panther in this other mission, and you'll play as this World War II American soldier in another mission, and another one is this Wakandan spy. And it seems like a really awesome narrative adventure, and we don't know a whole lot of details about it, but I'm excited for a game starring these 2 heroes.
Just like Codename Red, this one has my attention. I'm intrigued. I like what you're describing here.
Go watch the teaser trailer. You don't see a second of gameplay. It's all cinematic, and it's a lot of cryptic stuff. But it seems like Hydra is going to be the main villain, as you would expect in a World War II.
Sure, as it would be, yeah.
But yeah, it
maybe a little Red Skull.
It does seem like Red Skull. If you look at the teaser image, where like the heroes are kind of silhouetted, so you don't really see their faces or anything, but you can definitely tell it's Black Panther and Captain America in the middle. There is a little bit of like a Red Skull, or not a Red Skull, but a skull outline looming over top of them. And also in the cinematic reveal trailer, there were 2 instances of Hydra insignias.
Okay.
So
I mean, like you said, it makes total sense there. And I forget, is there a timeline in this, or is this just like, at some point in the future?
Coming at some point.
It's coming at some point. I'm gonna put a guess here, a blind guess. It's coming in 2024 October.
Okay, well,
as we're going with that. When you heard it here first, October 2024, you're getting this Marvel game that we don't know the name of.
Seems like it. That sounds about right.
Yeah, right. I'm just, think I'm putting it out there. I think it's an educated guess. And before we kind of wrap up on gaming too, I did just want to point out that I did receive a review code for NBA 2K23.
Nice. They came in hot this year.
They did. I told them, I'm like, listen, I can talk to my editors, and we'll see if we can get some coverage in here. But at this point, we don't have anything planned. And they said, okay, here you go. I said, all right, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm interested to check out how the gameplay has improved and how I pray it has not become more predatory. In terms of
it absolutely is going to be more predatory.
God, yeah, of course it is.
But
I'm just like, I kind of, because I have it now, I don't have to sink any money into it. I'll at least find out, okay, like what are we looking at here? What does this world come to now, and why should we be buying this game this year as opposed to past years where is it just adding new rosters and new ways to bilk your money? I don't know. So I'll find that out. I haven't even gotten to dive into the review guide. So yeah, hopefully I'll get the chance to do that this week, and maybe I'll give you guys a little update on my experience with 2K23.
All right. Speaking of stuff that's happened over this past weekend, did you happen to notice any of the D23 announcements?
No, I didn't.
Okay, well, just real quick, one that caught my eye. So we got like the as far as Marvel, let's just stick focused on Marvel, because like there was a ton of Star Wars stuff. There's a ton of
I'm probably more interested in Star
Disney
Wars, to be
stuff.
perfectly honest, but we can stick to there. That's okay.
I'm excited for Thunderbolts. Did you see this?
No.
So Thunderbolts is kind of like a ragtag team of like anti-heroes, right? In the Marvel universe. This includes I don't know how up to date you are on the MCU in terms of like TV shows and everything.
We're one episode away from finishing Miss Marvel, and then we haven't started She-Hulk. Other than that, I've seen everything.
Okay, so you've seen Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yep.
So Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Spoiler conversation sounds like.
Little bit.
All right.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus, her character from that show, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Mm-hmm.
You may remember she was talking to U.S. Agent.
Yes.
She seems to be like the head of this team. David Harbour as Red Guardian is part of the team. You remember him from Black Widow.
Yep.
Speaking of Black Widow, Florence Pugh is back as Yelena Belova.
Okay, so it's father and daughter there.
Then you have Hannah John Kamen from Ant-Man and the Wasp. She's coming back to reprise Ghost.
Yes, okay.
Which I'm excited about, because I feel like Ghost is a great character, and we haven't even scratched the surface.
There's more to do with that character, sure.
Olga Kurylenko is back as Taskmaster, aka the villain of Black Widow. Wyatt Russell back as John Walker again as a U.S. agent in this. From Falcon and Winter Soldier. Remember, he was the replacement Captain America?
Yes.
He's back in this team. And Sebastian Stan as Winter Soldier.
This whole entire thing, by the way, feels like almost Marvel's version. It's not 1-to-1, but it seems like they're kind of going for that Suicide Squad feel. Am I wrong?
Maybe.
I'm not saying they're going to put chips in their head and make them do, or they're going to be, try to get the vibe of Suicide Squad and what James Gunn was doing there. That's not what I'm saying. It just there's a distinct feel of like, hey, we're going to throw a bunch of characters maybe you've sort of heard of before. We're going to put them together, and then we're just going to make a team out of it, and they're going to go on missions.
But I think it is one of those things where it's like these are most of these characters are heroes. Taskmaster and Ghost kind of served the villain role in their respective movies,
but they were not necessarily like motivated by means that were meant to be, I guess, nefarious, right?
Yeah, they weren't. They were kind of like again, I don't want to spoil too much, but they were coerced from various forces to do their things. Or, I mean, in Hannah John Kamen's case or Ghost's case, it was literally survival.
Sure.
But other things we got, we don't need to go too in depth here. Captain America: New World Order. We got. From what I understand, we didn't get to see anything publicly, but they had the people out on stage. And the leader is back. I don't know if you remember the Incredible Hulk movie.
I do.
Remember, the leader was like kind of set up there. We haven't heard from him since. They did set him up,
and then they're like, "Well, we'll move on."
Yeah, because they moved on from almost everything in that, but now they're kind of bringing that back. Abomination has made some appearances,
right?
Shang-Chi. I mean, it's not a spoiler to say that that character appears in She-Hulk because it's been in trailers.
Spoiler to me.
Well, it was in trailers, so I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
I don't watch the trailers.
But yeah, so like they're bringing back these characters from the Incredible Hulk, and the leader is apparently one of them, which is a very important character in the Marvel Universe. And it's interesting to see that might be one of the characters that is in the new Captain America movie, or it is going to be one of the characters in the new Captain America movie. One that caught my eye, though, Daredevil Born Again, who it's starring Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, apparently. Which,
okay. Is this as a TV show or as actually a movie?
I believe it's an 18-episode TV series.
No. Hard no. Don't do that. Don't do it to me. I don't want long shows.
Did you watch the Daredevil Netflix show?
I did.
Dude, it's so good.
Yeah, it was good. But even that wasn't 18-episode season.
It's the MCU Batman that I wanted.
No, I'm not in. Like I'm going to watch it, but I'm going to be mad about this. Unless it's like it better wow me. Man, I'm
seemingly before that, it looks like it's going to be Echo taking place in between Hawkeye and Daredevil Born Again, and that's going to kind of signal the return of Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin.
Well, we already got that more or less,
but no, like if you watched Hawkeye, it seemed like maybe things weren't going to work out so well for him.
Yeah, but
yeah. There's a lot of
we knew that they didn't bring Vincent D'Onofrio back for just that. I mean that anyone with a brain kind of figured that out, right?
But yeah, we also got looks at Ironheart, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Werewolf by Night, which looks like they're just doing like a classic horror movie within the MCU, which it's like just a Halloween special coming to Disney Plus. It's basically an homage to the monster movies of like the 30s and 40s.
Okay,
which looks kind of cool. Secret Invasion, we got a trailer for, which looks like a spy thriller starring Nick Fury. Which I'm in for that.
Yeah, I'm more into that. Yeah.
And then we got, I guess, kind of brief mentions of Loki and Fantastic Four, where we got a director. What's his name? Shackman. What does he do? Matt Shackman is the director of Fantastic Four. It looks like he has directed episodes, or he directed WandaVision, and he's directed episodes of The Great, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Fargo, and Game of Thrones.
All right.
And then he also Cut Bank. I don't know that movie, but he's the director of that as well.
Don't know it.
But yeah, so those were the MCU announcements. We got a new trailer, I guess, for
I get
Mandalorian.
By all of them. Honestly, I know you're pumped about it. I'm less into the Marvel these days, man. Like the more of it, I'm just like, I almost want less. Like they're giving you so much, right? They're giving you so many different options, so many different looks, but like I was much more into it through the first 3 phases when we had like these characters that I knew the characters. That helped a lot. I don't know these characters as well, but I'm open to knowing them. But it's just, man, it's hard to keep up. And like, they're throwing things at you like the Eternals, which you didn't even really love the first time you watched it, right?
I watched it the second time and I liked it a lot more.
No,
Same thing with Thor: Love and
Thunder.
Saying
that. Yeah.
Thor: Love and Thunder I rewatched this past week when it got on Disney Plus, and I hated it the first time because, well, I mean, it was also the same day that we got hit with layoffs, so I was not in the mood for a Taika Waititi movie.
Fair enough.
I liked it a lot more the second time as well, but I think Eternals I liked more than I liked Thor and Love and Thunder, actually.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even think that was bad. I'm probably higher on Eternals than what I thought it was going to be, and then definitely probably what other people think too. But I don't know, man. I'm getting Marvel fatigue. I really am, man. Like you're listing all these projects and things, and I can tell you're excited, and I'm happy you are. I do not want to take away the excitement from you or any of our listeners. I hope you're all thrilled and I hope everything comes through, but I'm starting to move closer away to just picking and choosing what I watch instead of watching everything. But
I think that I'm most excited for Daredevil, honestly.
I am too, but I mean, in the same time, I also just wish it was like, can't you just do like a 6-episode thing like you also did with all these other shows? Like there's 6. I'm very happy with the length of these, like 6 episodes. If I wasn't watching with my wife, and my wife and I don't always have the time to watch together, I'd get through them much quicker. But as it is, it's kind of like now I'm always a show behind, right? Like I'm talking about, we're 1 episode left in Ms. Marvel, whereas you're pumped to be halfway through, I'm sure, She-Hulk, right? Like you're enjoying She-Hulk.
I'm enjoying
it. Don't spoil anything again.
It's well, the next big cameo is no.
Damn you.
There actually are. They did show 3 cameos in the trailer. I won't ruin the other 2.
I don't watch the trailers. Like I don't need them because I know I'm gonna watch it.
Well, I'm not watching like the mid-season trailer because it's like I don't want to ruin anything else. But like I'll watch it usually for like these Marvel projects. I will watch the initial trailer and I'll be like, okay, that's the tone they're going for. That way I can go in with expectations. Like She-Hulk, I watched it and I'm like, oh, they're going for like kind of like a sitcom-y like lawyer show, right? Like there's going to be like jokes every like other scene, and there's going to be like fourth wall breaking, which there's a decent amount of that. Not Deadpool, like not levels of Deadpool, but you know, it's an enjoyable, like breezy show, I would say is like the best way to describe it. Don't expect it to be the most consequential Marvel project of all time. It's just like a fun little show with a good amount of cameos.
All right. Now, I'm honestly, the fact that it's more sitcom-y actually...
And the episodes are 30 minutes long.
It appeals more to my wife, especially, who I think would like some more sitcoms in our lives as opposed to kind of, you know, dramas and things like that. Not that Marvel's heavy drama, but I think when we sit down and watch TV, we're more inclined to watch an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine than we are to watch, you know, even, let's say, a 45-minute episode of Marvel.
Sure.
You know, and when I say Marvel, obviously we mean Marvel could be literally whatever show is on. Like that almost like its own show is just Marvel. It's just all these various different shows because it's all within the same universe.
I think all of them at this point have to be considered part of the same franchise, right?
Which is why it's so exhausting. Oh my God.
Yeah, like this is the longest running franchise in film and TV history at this point, it feels like. In terms of like overall volume, right? I'm not talking like James Bond obviously has been running for longer, but like there's far more movies in Marvel, in the MCU, than there are in James Bond.
At this point, I think the movies are actually pretty close. There's like 24, 25 Bond movies.
Well, I mean, there were 23, I think, in the up until Infinity War, I believe.
They're pretty close, though, is kind of where we're getting it. But, I mean, obviously, they will far outpace. They're going to make several more Marvel movies before they make even the next Bond movie. So there's that. We don't even know who
there are currently 29 MCU films.
Okay, yeah. So they're starting to pull away, right?
But that doesn't even count the TV shows.
Sure. Hey, before we wrap it up, too, because you mentioned football, right? It was the first day of football was yesterday. Well, technically Thursday, but like real ringing in the season was yesterday with the full slate, right? Your Ravens played against the Jets. My brother-in-law, my father-in-law were at that game because I live within a stone's throw practically of the stadium. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, we have the DirecTV Sunday ticket package, right? My father does. So I get to watch it through my phone. Through the app and everything like that. He just used the TV. I watched it through there. But day one, and there's always day one issues with this thing. Always. But when I'm trying to watch my Panthers, it's kind of frustrating because it thinks, it's saying, you're at the stadium. You can't watch it while you're at the stadium. I'm like, bro, I'm not even trying to watch the game that the stadium I'm near. Like, and I'm not near enough to the stadium that for GPS to think I'm there. Now, granted, I put that out there on social media. A bunch of other people from around the country were like, yeah, I'm having the same problem. I don't even live near a stadium. So knowing that it was not just they thought I was at MetLife Stadium made me feel a lot better. But yeah, I couldn't watch the game to start. So typical issues with Sunday ticket.
That's legitimately the stupidest rule I've ever heard. Like, if you're at the stadium, that's the whole point of a blackout, is they want you to go to the stadium. If you're there, why not let you enjoy it?
Well, I think they do know that a lot of people go to tailgate and not actually buy a ticket, too. There is that. But it's so predatory. It's BS. I know.
I can't wait for DirecTV to lose this right so I can finally watch because I didn't see a second of the Ravens-Jets game.
It's still the NFL, though. That's the NFL's call.
But like, I as long as they go to like something that I don't have to get a separate subscription for, like if they go
I understand.
Say they go to ESPN Plus, say they go to Amazon, those are things I already subscribe to. I can just pay whatever it costs for Sunday ticket. I don't have to be like, all right, well, let me set up DirecTV and pay that service plus another one on top of that. It's like if I was a UFC fan, but I didn't have ESPN Plus, and it's just like, all right, well, I have to subscribe to ESPN Plus and then buy the pay-per-view on top of that. Like, if I'm already subscribed to ESPN Plus, it's a smaller pill to swallow.
Sure.
That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for it to come to a different service that I actually want to subscribe to.
No, I understand. I get it. And I'm looking forward to the day where I can subscribe specifically to the Panthers. My dad can specifically subscribe to the Rams, and then we'll pretty much be good. Like, I can watch the other games of the week at that point. I'm okay with that. I don't need every single game. Or if I could get Red Zones separately as well. Hey, that's great too.
Red Zone is awesome.
Wonderful.
I used to do that where like like in the winter, because Minneapolis winters don't mess around, so I'm not like going on a whole lot of runs in the winter. I had an elliptical back in the day, and I would just turn on Red Zone, and I would be on the elliptical for like 3.5 hours just watching Red Zone, and it was
I
the
like
best.
the elliptical much better than running because it when the impact of running definitely hurts my my like lower legs.
Yeah. That's why I usually take winters off these days. Aside from the awful weather, like I let my body recover from a summer full of running.
That is, yeah, I think that's the way to go. Yeah, so I didn't really get to watch much of the game anyway. It wasn't just because of that, but I was hoping to watch at least the beginning before my son's birthday party started. We were hosting a birthday party, so I had to manage that, maybe be the host and all that. Everyone left around 3:00, so then I was able to put the game on. Fortunately, everything had worked itself out. All was well. And I'm watching, and my team's down. They're starting to make a fourth quarter rally. They actually managed to take back the lead, and then a stupid roughing the passer call that was anything but ended up giving the Browns enough momentum to get into field goal range and sink my team. And that was really heartbreaking. So I had a roller coaster of emotion just for that like fourth quarter.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
my team actually
did
not have any. They didn't have any drama in their game, from what I
they weren't
understand.
going
Again,
to.
who knows? Because I just was looking at numbers on a page. It's such a stupid system. I hate the NFL.
And if you're gonna watch a game, like especially week one, like you want good football games. You want to watch a good football game, but like if you're just gonna watch a lopsided football game, at least it's week one with your team winning. Like that's what you got here, and you unfortunately didn't get to watch that.
Yeah, it's like they want people to be excited about football, and then they don't let you watch your team. It is the most backwards policy ever.
What's worse, not being able to watch your team excel in a game, or paying money to go to the stadium and watch your team be terrible?
At least you get to watch them if you go to the stadium and be terrible.
But you sunk a lot of money into that one.
Yeah, but like it's better than not being able to see them at all.
All right, fair enough.
It's better to have loved and lost than not have loved at all.
When's the last time you went to a Ravens game?
Never.
You've never been to a Ravens game?
I've never been to a regular season or postseason NFL game. I've only been to a preseason game, and it was Steelers-Bills at Heinz Field.
Oh, you should go. Next time the Ravens are in town, you should go.
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't come except for every 4 years.
I know. Well, it's even less frequently, right? It's like every 8 years because they
play the Vikings
and
every 4 years.
And it's not guaranteed. I think it could be one or the other. Yeah, so there's no guarantee you would get them even in the next 4 years or 8 years or whatever.
It's not very common. But I've never.
You gotta go next time they're in town. I've
never been to an NFL game or an NHL game aside from one preseason NFL game. I used to be a season ticket holder for the Pittsburgh Panthers, and I went to some big games there back in the day when like they were pretty good.
Oh, Pitt, like football.
Yeah, college football.
Okay. We switched from two sports. I was like, oh, is he talking about hockey? No, I'm with you now.
Yeah. But I do want to go. The Capitals are in town for the Minnesota Wild, I think in March. So I'm going to try to get tickets to that because I've always wanted to go to an NHL game. But I've been to so many MLB games. I've been to so many NBA games back in the day. I used to go to the Washington Bullets. I would go watch George Mirasan play.
George Mirasan put his hand on my head once when I was 14.
Did he just palm your head like a basketball?
But he did it. So this was, and we should wrap up after this. But I was at it was like a pep rally for the Nets, right? I live near the New Jersey Nets. He was on the Nets at this point. He moved on from Washington, and so he was there. Everyone was signing. It was really more geared to that kind of thing, right? They don't do this in the NBA now. But he was going by, he was signing balls, and I want to say I was like 13, 14 or something like that. And he walked off with not the ball that he signed of me. It was like a mini ball. He walked up with my pen. And I was like, wait, I'm like trying to get his attention. And then he realized he comes back to me. He gives it back with a big smile. And then he puts his hand on my head and, just being silly. Right. And I was like, this is the largest hand in the world.
Well, for some people who aren't like basketball fans, George Mirasan played for the Wizards. Well, now the Wizards, the
Washington Bullet basketball franchise.
He's 7'7".
He is 7'7". He's one of the tallest human beings on the planet.
And he was the center for the Washington Bullets. Obviously, he wasn't the point guard, but he was just a massive, massive man. And I remember
anyone who's ever seen My Giant as a child, that was him.
Yes. And I actually got to see him play on several occasions because, I grew up in the area, and I did get to see the Washington Bullets play the Chicago Bulls back when Jordan was on the team. That was maybe the highlight of like my live sports experience, getting to see Michael Jordan. Even though I was a little kid, I just remember like little tiny glimpses of it. But I remember being like, oh, that's Michael Jordan. That's the guy I hear so much about.
I saw Jordan play on the Wizards at the Garden. That was in his last season. I am
jealous about that though, because it was
cool to be there, but it wasn't like. Yeah.
But still, it's the guy.
I know
it's the guy. I mean, that's like if you go and like see Anderson Silva fight today. It's like
that's true.
You know
it's true.
He's one of the greatest of all time, and he's maybe not the greatest now, but like it's still the guy, and he's still doing his thing.
That is true.
Why not?
You got to respect to a legend, of course. But yeah, I think that's probably it, right? We've got a lot into this one. We got to wrap it up.
Scatter shot here.
This was good. This was good. So yeah, that's our show, of course. And if you liked it, subscribe. Definitely support us. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever it is you're listening. Tell your friends, of course. And while you're at it, would you kindly subscribe to our social handles at Brian P. Shea and at Scott_Fontana on Twitter and Instagram.
And of course, you can always reach us with questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear about, or just letting us know what you're hyped for by hitting us up at groundedpwnedpod@gmail.com or at groundedpwned on Twitter. Until next time, enjoy the fights, enjoy the games, and we will talk to you next week.